Well, 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 it looks like it's happening. The opposition is finally showing a backbone. And that is thanks to you, the people of Britain, who have, in no uncertain terms, been contacting your MPs. And actually thank you also to the Brexiteers, because, you know, the very fact that this division has happened now has woken people up. And including many people who voted Brexit were duped by the packs of lies they were told and have since changed their mind, the vast majority of them, leaving once again that small minority of hard-right extremists in Britain. People have woken up out of their political sleep and slumber, of decades of abuse against us, everybody feeling powerless. Finally, people have woken up, and the MPs, as is their job, are doing their job because they know that their jobs are on the line here. Because if this no-deal Brexit goes through, Boris Johnson's Brexit, then that's it. There's going to be major social unrest, and all of these MPs will be lucky if they ever see a seat in Parliament ever again. And also, a lot of them are genuinely altruistic. They became an MP to serve the people of Britain, and they are doing their job. Now, Corbyn and the opposition, or the members of the opposition within Parliament, including Liberals, have got together to stop this no-deal Brexit, and they will be using the High Court. And, you know, Sharmi Chakrabarti, who wrote the document, handed the document to the High Court, he said it would be the gravest abuse of power and attack on UK constitutional principle in living memory. Well, I would say that this whole Brexit itself is the gravest constitutional attack in living memory. And, you know, I was asked to compile some of the evidence and present the legal argument and actually the ethical and moral argument for revoking or indefinitely pausing, at least, Article 50. And the evidence in here is damning. It is evidence of what amounts to treason, because we're talking about an actually criminal government that has abused its power, even to the extent of this lawful suspicions around rigged elections, but has abused its power purely for the interests of a minority, the financial interests of a minority of people in Britain, you know, the 1%, to protect their tax havens, their tax breaks, their tax frauds, to continue to conceal their crimes, their criminal financial activities, as have been exposed by Gordon Bowden. I'll be leaving you these links. Read through them. So, Labour leaders reach an agreement on tactics to stop no-deal Brexit in meeting with Corbyn. So that's just very, very recently. They've decided they're not going to do a vote of no confidence and install Jeremy Corbyn. But they're going to work together, and they are going to stop this by legislation and, if necessary, through the High Court. And what is said here at the end is really very, very interesting. Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell was set to attend the event, which was expected to call for MPs to continue sitting in an alternative Commons if the Prime Minister suspends Parliament to ram through no deal. So they put that right at the end. Really, this should have been headline news, because that is a threat of revolt from within Parliament. That's revolt. That basically they are set to disobey Boris Johnson if he if he decides to suspend Parliament while he forces through his no-deal Brexit. Which all those MPs gathering there to discuss this know full well that this Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, basically Britain it's throwing the people off a cliff edge. That's what it is doing. Because the thing is that they haven't even got anything in preparedness to cope. So there's not enough food, there's not enough medicines, they haven't actually got any deals set up so it can be a smooth transition. They're still in the process of doing the deals. And we all know the deal, don't we? That, you know, America gives us food and in return we give them our NHS, the last jewel in the public purse for them to steal and devour for themselves. And, you know, once these private entities get their hands on the NHS, we will be looking at corporate asset stripping, because that's what they do. Everything will be ransacked. Our NHS will be held up as a plunder. X-ray machines, kidney machines, surgical implements, you name it. Look what's happened with our post offices. Public buildings, beautiful public buildings, paid for by us, we the people. All privatised for how much? To corporations who are paying no taxes, probably. Who are benefiting from these huge tax breaks that the Tories have given them, and also subsidies that all the privatised services have been receiving. Massive major subsidies, so we're still paying them out of the public purse while they make a profit off us as well. And they want to do the same to our hospitals. They've already done it. They did it to the Tories, they did it to our schools and colleges, selling off public lands, to private developers. And what do we, the public, get? What have we got in return for all them schools and colleges and lands and the hospital lands they've already been stealing and selling? What's coming back to us? Nothing. Because Boris Johnson was prepared to leave the British people with nothing. Literally queuing up outside food banks to buy our rations. And Anonymous on Twitter made a very good point yesterday. They quoted these people, Brexiteers, saying, we survived the Blitz, we'll survive Brexit. And they said, no, you didn't survive the Blitz. You didn't survive the Blitz because you, the vast majority of the Brexiteers and the Remainers, couldn't even imagine the Blitz. They couldn't imagine the levels of poverty, food poverty that people were in during those times. But that was a different Britain. It was a united Britain. People were helping each other out. And they want us to leave, you see, with nothing. Because the Britain that entered the EU was a strong, independent, powerful nation. We had our own nationalised and independent, British-owned independent businesses and industries. We had our own nationalised and independently owned, British independently owned services. We had trade deals with other nations. But the Tories took us into the EU without a referendum, made us dependent on it, smashed down all our industries, not just the national industries, but the privatised ones as well. The privately, independently owned British industries as well, they've smashed down. And Gordon Bowden here, he explains and gives the evidence exactly how they've done it. Asset stripped, independent British business. Brought them to ruin deliberately. Selling fake AAA rated investments that people invest in and then they fail, and then as a result businesses fail because that's the market. The AAA investments are supposed to be a done deal. You know, you were at least going to get your money back. That's how they've lost pensions. Oh, you know, invest your money, your profits in here. We'll look after them for you. In fact, your profits will be rising even while your business is creating more profits, you see. And that's what's happened. So we are not the nation that we were when we entered the EU. And now we're leaving with nothing in the middle of austerity, you see. And that's why I explained to Brexiteers, which I know the majority of people who voted Brexit, they understand, look, yeah, we made a mistake. We were duped. We were lied to. Because these people are criminals. And, you know, the evidence is shared in no uncertain terms. Everything that's stated in this article is all supported by reference after reference after reference at the end of this. It's undeniable. Now, we're leaving the EU, and this is what I mean about a terrorist government, and actually criminally incompetent, negligent government, that imposes this referendum, has absolutely nothing in place to provide for people's food, whatever. They've got nothing in place. They haven't got a deal with America yet. And even before the deal, look, this is from August 20th. Congress will block US-UK trade deal if there's a hard Brexit border, warned Senator. This is about the Irish border. Thank you, because the people of Ireland need protecting. And I sent my proposal to the EU, and it states in no uncertain terms that the EU has a duty to stand up for the rights of the people of Ireland, of South and Northern Ireland, because they have, the Northern Ireland people who had the vote have voted to remain, and Ireland is with the EU. They've not decided to leave the EU, and therefore the EU cannot look at Ireland as two separate nations. It has to see them as an EU nation as a whole. There is no divide according to EU law. According to the duties and responsibilities the EU as a collective has for the people of Ireland, and knowing full well that a hard border is basically scrapping the Good Friday Agreement. And how can Europe agree to do that as a democratic entity standing up for human rights? How could they agree to that? Nobody can agree to that. It's very serious. And I am not surprised that, you know, this is a threat of revolt. You know, army ready to assist police in event of no deal. Police amass 10,000 officers in preparation for no deal unrest. Government planning for martial law under emergency no-deal Brexit preparations. Now, this is from the beginning of the year. And I've explained this in my videos. That is what they'll do. They will bring us to the cliff edge. You'll be queuing up outside your food banks with your ration cards to buy your meagre supplies. You'll be told, oh, come on, you know, get with it, people. We got through the Blitz. We're going to get through this. It's like, no. Because why should we be in war conditions? What kind of a government imposes wartime conditions on its people unless that government is a terrorist government and literally then has to control its population with the point of a gun because they're so lawless? And they have spat on democracy, and for no other reason to protect their tax havens and for them to stay out of jail, because once these EU tax regulations come in, they will have to disclose all their financial dealings and give an account of them. And Gordon Bowden has the evidence. And he's been ignored. He has been taking his evidence. You know, one person tried to prosecute him for defamation. It's like, no. Because the evidence he's got is sound. And the person who tried to prosecute him ended up fleeing the country, apparently. You know, this is really, really serious. And it's exactly as I'd predicted, which I said, you know, he'll get his no deal, and then there'll be mass social unrest, and then we'll have martial law, we'll be under curfews, and then we'll be down to a police state, that'll be normalised. And so what hope is there thereafter of having any democracy? Our freedom of movement within Britain will be restricted. This Brexit, it threatens to destroy the very unity of our kingdom, of our United Kingdom. This is why I say it's a treasonous attack. Now, one thing I wanted to show here as well, sorry about some of the pictures, I don't know if it's on this one or if it's the next one. There was a comment somebody had left here that I just want to pick up on. Here we go. Morally correct. 1 hour ago, so. I can't reply to @AutoDave post below about Remain voters being traitors. So that was. This is the person's name that he is replying to. AutoDave, probably. Morally correct. Look, no picture. Okay. I can't reply to AutoDave post below about Remain voters, inverted commas, being traitors. This is correct. Just voting for a foreign political power isn't being a traitor. It's very unpatriotic and a slap in the face of to the nation in which you was raised. A traitor, meanwhile, would be the kind of person who was met with the EU to discuss the best ways to hamper the UK's leave vote and look at ways to bring down governments' votes for their own gain. If you search Google the definition of a national traitor, this is what comes up. Treason is when a person acts against his or her country. A treasonous person is called a traitor. Outside the field of law, the word traitor can be used to describe a person who betrays a group to which he or she belongs. Okay, so basically what this person is suggesting here is that actually nobody voted to Remain because, as they were saying right from the beginning, it was a rigged election. It was rigged. It was going to be rigged. The Brexit vote was going to be rigged, just like the Trumpists said. And yet you look at the Trump administration and you look at Republican shenanigans with the voting system. It's them who's rigging the voting system. But they were there saying, oh, you know, they're going to rig the election so Trump doesn't win. And then Trump wins. And what are they doing anyway? Rigging the votes with cross-check. So, yeah, apparently, the people who voted to stay in the EU, who care about our rights, who care about our environment, who care about health and safety regulations on our food, who care what we're feeding our children, who care about being actually able to give buy safe, healthy food for our children at affordable prices, who care about the people of our nation having access to their vital medicines. Oh, apparently we're traitors. The people who don't want to see our United Kingdom broken apart. We're traitors? No, you see, this, Morally Correct and AutoDave are probably cyberbots. Cyberbots. Exposé of Johnson promo bots leads to sinister wave of hacking attacks on Labour supporter account. 24th of the 8th, 2019. Thousands of bots amplifying Tory PM's tweets exposed by left-winger, but revenge attempts follow swiftly. Excellent work by a left-wing Labour supporter has exposed a programme to make Boris Johnson's social media appeal more popular by using thousands of social media bots to like and share Johnson's posts. And, you know, they're not just at it on Johnson's post. This whole Brexit thing, we know the Cambridge Analytica thing, we know the online army that suddenly appeared, all shouting for Brexit and intimidating and even threatening people that were supporting to stay in the EU. I saw it, I witnessed it all. The latest Boris Johnson tweet got thousands of retweets and likes within an hour. However, when you check the accounts retweeting and liking, many have no or very few followers, never tweeted themselves, brand new accounts. Who is paying for the many thousands in the Boris bot army? Well, we know that they've already had dirty money, 7 million of dirty money, actually laundered money, to fund their Brexit campaign. And there's just, you know, I'll leave you the link under, but, you know, read through it. So, you know, when you're online and you start seeing all these comments, like has been written under there, you know, Remain voters are traitors, you know, understand that that is the mentality that the far right are using now. This is a tactic. They commit the crimes and then blame the victim for the crime. That is their tactic. And it is anybody who is still, even after we know what's going on, even with the Good Friday Agreement at risk. Because, you know, Congress is going to block it precisely to protect Ireland. Because the EU cannot permit Ireland and Northern Ireland, Southern Ireland and Northern Ireland suddenly to be split, and with the risk of war again, because that's actually an attack against the people, and that's what Brexit amounts to, an attack against the people. So they've got no deal, no food deal set up with America as yet. So how long is it going to be then? How long are the British people going to be on rations? How long is this police state going to last? Because we've got no deal with America. We've got no deal with nobody. These are the realities of life. When you're facing the reality of life. When you're facing your children hungry. Are you going to say, well, you know, never mind, kids, you've got your sovereignty. What is sovereignty when you've got no human rights, no workers' rights, your environment's not even protected, and you've got to import toxic food that's banned in the EU because it's so unsafe from a nation that poisons its population with lead in the water. Water that our food from America is going to be made in. It's no wonder they're telling Britain we've got to lose our EU health and safety regulations. So, you know, this is, we are facing very serious times, and we do need, as a nation, to stand up for our rights now and to back this, to block this. Personally, I say, you know, revoke Article 50. We need an election. We need to get this country back on its feet again. Let people be adequately, thoroughly informed. Because it is a very, very serious matter that the High Court decided that Boris Johnson could not be prosecuted for lying to the British public when he was driving around with that bus with a pack of lies on it. And even false promises, because basically he was lying about the fact Britain pays 350 million a week into the EU, and also about the fact that if we weren't paying that, we'd be giving it to the NHS, because him and his cronies had already had their deal to hand over the NHS to America as part of a food deal. So he's told lies that have persuaded people to vote against their own best interests, against the interests of Britain as a nation, against the interests of their children and their own interests. He knew full well what was coming And that is why they were planning their troops. That is why they were planning all of this, because he knew he was lying to people. But he can't be prosecuted for persuading people to support treason and tyranny. A people who he had terrorised with, his party has terrorised with their economic terrorism and murdered 130,000 people through economic murder, directly through their policy of austerity. This is what we are dealing with. Face it, we have been burying our dead for these Tories and their bankers and their criminal bankers. And I tell you, when you read this from Gordon Bowden, God bless him, you start to understand just what a terrible situation we are in. And there needs to be change in this world. And Britain, as a leading and influential nation, we need to be a beacon of light and hope throughout the world now. And hopefully America will achieve the same. Because, you know, again, Trump and his supporters, they've woken America up to the importance of law, to the importance of our humanity, to what it means to be a human being, to the importance of our rights and the importance of our planet. People have been learning lessons here. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And, you know, we need to come together. These aren't times for pointing fingers and blame games. But that's the kind of revolution that we need, that the professional people of Britain, as I've been asking for and a lot of other people, that they use their powers. Because we don't want riots on the streets. We don't want people being driven that crazy that they're smashing their own communities up. But obviously the likes of Boris Johnson would love it, because then that gives him the power to bring on his police state. You know, troops and armed police lining up outside the food queues. That's the whole nation living out of a food bank. So that itself is a terrorist threat. But he can't be prosecuted. He can't be prosecuted for putting Britain at this risk, for leaving. His Brexit has left people unemployed, homeless. Have people, how many people have been driven to taking their own lives or in deep depression? The worry, the stress that people have been living with now for over 2 years. And he can't be prosecuted. Look what's happened to our pound. He's already attacked our economy. They've divided our society with his lies. Lie upon lie upon lie upon lie. And even employing private, global, corporate, social engineering firms to spy on British people and even to attack British people online with their cyber accounts. Trolls. Tories hire army of tweeters to take social media fight to Labour. They've admitted it. A social media army. You know, the attack of words begins until they get the steps, don't they, through their attack of words, until finally, here we are. Well, no, it isn't coming. In fact, you know what I'd like to see? More of that spirit that the opposition in Parliament have shown. You know, for the police of London to get those water cannon that Boris Johnson bought for London for riot control, crowd control. I would love to see the police take it upon themselves as part of civil disobedience and take them down to Downing Street to Parliament and hose down the Tory MPs as they leave Parliament. Because they deserve it. Boris bought those water cannon to use against the protesting British public. For austerity riots, he said. Oh, it looks like he's going to get a chance to use them, isn't it? He can't wait. Oh, I'll be able to use my water cannon. Well, to me, it would be most just that they were used on him and his Tory supporters who have attacked Britain. And it is very, very serious that the High Court, the High Court is what? Is that corrupt? That they're prepared to turn around and say, no, we can't prosecute him for perjury after he's caused such damage with his lies? So, thanks for taking time to listen. Please share it, share the information. It is time to get active and keep at it, people. You know, you've been in touch with your MPs. They're listening now, and you're awake and aware, and it's time to start using that power and using our ability now. Yeah, contact your MP about the many other important issues that apply to us and that Britain is influencing in the world. Like, for example, selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. Like, for example, the fact that Britain, the Minister for Defence, lied to Parliament saying that depleted uranium weapons had been through the Geneva Weapons Convention review. When it turns out 10 years later he had to apologise for lying. It turned out that no, they hadn't been through any of the reviews, the required reviews, to be passed as safe to be used. And now, decades later, we've got the evidence. The Iraqi children being born with deformities, the dead, deformed babies, the people dying of leukemia. This is reality. This is the reality that our country has been involved in and responsible for. At some point in the future, Iraqi people would have every right to take Britain to the International Court of Justice and demand compensation for the damages that have been caused through depleted uranium against all the countries that have been supporting what's been going on in Iraq, and even not saying nothing about the weapons that have been used, like depleted uranium. Our children's children will be held responsible, will be paying for that. Because these lot, oh well, they've done the dirty, haven't they? Blair, Tory Labour, Blair, and Cameron and all the others, they're off and away, aren't they? Their families will still be living up big, as far as they hope, anyway. And they will be if we have Brexit. Because the wars will just continue and get worse and worse and worse. That's why it is so important. We need, if we want to leave the EU, we need to be the country we were when we entered it. And that's what we need to work towards. A safer, more secure, productive Britain. A prosperous nation. And we have the people to do it. We've got the manpower. It's time that we started developing new technology. It's time we invested in hemp. It's time to find new ways to survive, because this banking system, you know, they want to push us to the cliff because it's them who are on the cliff edge right now. Their banking system, it's collapsed. They're living on a shoestring of hope that they can get away with their corporate coup, their global corporate coup. Even while I speak, they're by stealth rolling out 5G. And that's another thing that people need to look into. And I'll try and leave you a couple of links about 5G under this. But, you know, we have to start. That's what I do. I connect the dots. I share information. I try to present a full picture. And that is why I've made my videos, to enlighten people, to brighten up. It's time to brighten up. We've been living in this gloom and doom that's just never ending, never ending, never ending. according to the people who are profiting off it all. That doom and gloom does not have to be. All it takes is for good people to stand up and do something and speak out. And to do it lawfully. And like I say, civil disobedience. And that's exactly what the Labour and other members of the opposition have now agreed to do. And if it came to it, then yes, if Boris Johnson decides to shut down Parliament and suspend Parliament while he rushes through his no-deal Brexit, much to his banker friends' delight, and to put British people's lives, our very lives, on the line, then yeah, they're going to set up an alternative Parliament, an alternative House of Commons. And we are that'll be the brink of civil war, won't it? Is the British Army, who's the British Army going to stand by? Will the Tories be reduced to using DynCorp, the corporate army they've installed in Britain, with all their foreign mercenary military troops that they've given them legislation to bring in? Yes, yes. Yes, they have. Check some of my videos. I share the information. The information is shared here. The evidence that they brought in corporate militaries in Britain. They're up for hire for governments to keep the peace. Yeah, I tell you, it can get very dark. A lot darker than even what is shared here. So it's time to brighten up. And it's time for us to feel positive. And like I say, you know, this isn't the blame game for the people of, oh, you voted Brexit, oh, but you've lost, or I've won. You know, it's time to stand together and to understand that, look, you want to leave the EU, then you do need to be independent. You need to have your trade deals and everything set up in advance. You don't take a whole nation of people to a cliff edge, ready for them to fall off it. And, oh, on the way down, oh, by the way, we've even removed, you know, the odd few safety nets that were there. We've already took the rug from under your feet before this whole thing even started with their austerity. A lot of British people are already working without any rights under these 0-hour contracts. Why do you think you have to sign a contract? To sign away your rights. That, oh, I agree that I will have no breaks, or I am not entitled to a holiday or sick pay. I agree to all this. No, 0-hour contracts need to be banned. So, hats off to the people, that's all I can say. A big thank you to everybody, the MPs, and to the people of Britain who have stood up and spoken out in no uncertain terms, who have at last found courage and strength to use their power of influence. And keep it up, people, keep it up, because we can never ever return back to that political sleep and slumber and darkness that we have been living in, really, since Thatcher.